Welcome back to CPM Insights. In today's episode, we're going to look at the final version of how to extract data from OneStream and load into a custom table and external table. Last episode, we did look at how to load the file as is into a table with the same structure as a file. We added default columns in there. Today, we're going to see how to pick and choose between fields from the file. Last episode, we couldn't do it because we couldn't make it work. So this one, we are going to see how to load specific columns from a file extracted from OneStream and load it into an external table. We're going to use the same rule. We're going to use the same data management sequences. We're going to mostly use all of the things that we did in the last episode. So if you have not watched that, please go ahead and watch it now. So we are now going to pick and choose columns from that extract file so that we can go ahead and load it into the table. So first of all, I need to change the table and say this is what I want. So cons, I'm going to rename it as currency. And I'm going to make this as updated. Last time I made that mistake of doing it as update. So we're going to do that. So now we do have all the columns that we want to push to the external table. As you can see, it is not a OneStream table, it is an external table. Now, we have our rule. We don't need the tokens, and we are going to create our own version of load custom table using delimiter. So we don't need those information. We need the file. So we're going to keep the file there. And what we are now going to do is we need to say which columns from the file we need and what those columns are in the table. So if you think about it, it's kind of like a key and a value. You're saying this is my file column, this is my table column. So it kind of acts like a key and a value. So what we are going to do is we're going to create a dictionary to hold that information. So I'm going to say file, I'm going to say needed columns as new dictionary, and it is going to be a type of string and string because that's a way how we're going to do it. And I'm going to initialize it right away because I know the values for it. So that's a way how you initialize a dictionary directly if you know it. So let's go back in here and then say, okay, I need geography. Gonna split the screen so it's going to be easier for me to do it, to look at it and then do it here. So we need geography. So I have that there. Gonna say geography is nothing but entity. So now you get the idea that this is how the structure is going to be. Now, the next one is I'm going to say scenario is scenario. Okay. Don't forget the double quotes. I am going to now say I need currency, that is my table column, and I know that is cons. And now I need time, which is we got, you know what? It's easier. I should have done that earlier. But anyways. 9. I need 10. So what am I missing? We got... Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we have our dictionary that goes into our rule. So we know that this is the columns that we need, and these are the columns from the file. Now, why are we doing this? Because when we are reading the file, it can be read as each lines. That's a way you can read it. There are different ways to read it, so we're going to read it line by line. However, when you go line by line, you need to say, this is the column that I need from that line. So that's why we are going to do it this way, because when VB understands it, the file readers all read it as either as a string array or as a string, and then you need to split it and then say, I need column 1, column 5, or column 6. So that's the reason why we are using a dictionary and then saying these are the ones I need from the file. Now, there are different ways to read a file. You could use a file.readLines. There are stream readers. You could do all of those things. What we are going to use is we're going to use Textfield Parser, kind of like that one. So we're going to use that to read the file. So you can look at Textfield Parser here, where from Microsoft we're going to use that. So we already have Microsoft Visual Basic namespace imported already. So we are now going to say we're going to use the file reader. So I'm going to say using file reader as, it comes from file.io. And for some reason, I guess it is hidden. That's why the IntelliSense is not going to work. So we are going to make use of this guy here. I'm gonna just copy that, and we're gonna use file name. That's the one we're gonna use. Gonna say end using. You can say now file reader dot set delimiter. So you can just say, you could do set delimiter. Yeah, you could do set delimiters. You have different ways to do it. You can just say that dot delimiter, or you can say set delimiters. So I know that our file is a comma separated one, because that's the way how OneStream produces it. So we're going to do that. The other good thing I like about the text parser classes, you could say what the file type is. The field type, you could say it is delimited, you can say it is fixed. So that's the reason of why I like it. So we are going to say ours is a delimited file. So we are going to do that. I'm going to say this is, so we do now have everything set. We can now start reading the file. So we said it is a delimited file. We said the delimiter is a comma. Now we can say, I want the header, because that is going to be my first line. So I'm going to say that is a string array, and I'm going to say read line. So file reader dot so that's the one where we are going to say read fields. So when we read the fields, it returns that as an array based on the delimiter that we set. So that's what we are going to say, read the fields. So now we got the header, then it moves into the next line, which is where our regular files are starting. Now we got the header, now we need to find out which columns are needed. So we're going to say we need another piece. So we're going to say, going to create the indexes as new list of integer, because it is going to come as an integer. So I'm just going to say I need that as a indices. Now we have now that list created. What we now need to do is we need also a data table, because we are going to save the information that we get as a data table and then save that back into the external table. So we have a new data table, and then what we now need to do is we need to loop through the needed column dictionary. So I'm going to say for each needed column in needed columns, we're going to now loop through this one. What we are going to do is we are going to find what is the index of our needed column. So we are going to say indices dot add. We are going to use an array method to find the index of. Now we need to mention the array. Our array is nothing but the header. Now we need to supply what we need to find from that array. So we know that our needed columns value is the one, needed column dot value is the one that we need. Because if you look at it, the way we structured this is we said this is the column in the table, this is the field in the file. So our value are the ones that are coming from the file. So if you look at it this way, so we did say that everything that you have as a value is from the file. So I have flow in there, I have UD1 in there, I have time, cons. So everything that is showing up as second is a value of in the dictionary. So we are saying find that one, add it there. And also while you're at it, I need to add columns to this data table. I'm going to say that is what it is, and I'm going to add a column which is going to be nothing but the key, because if you look at it, our first entry for the dictionary is the key. That is the column that is there on the table. So now we have that, we got the indices, we got the array that we need to pick, we added those columns into the data table. Now we have two other ones that are there. So these are the columns that we need from the file. Now we got our default items where we say last updated by, that is there. We are going to say that guy's default value. You could do anything. I'm just going to say si.username is going to be that, and I'm going to do this last updated date. We need a type for this guy. So we're going to say get type date time. Because for this, we do need a type to mention that this is what it is going to be. So now you can see how the default method is doing things. This is where I was saying it is using the field token and then creating the columns with that type. So we can now say datetime dot now here, and we need one more parenthesis there. There we go. So we now have all the columns that are needed. We now have the default ones, and now we're ready to read the lines. So what we are going to do is we are going to do a while loop. We're going to say file reader is not end of data. So if you look at it, you can see that there is an end of data field somewhere here. Yeah, the end of data. What it says is if it is end of the data, it returns it as a true. So what we are saying is if it is not end of data, we need to do a loop. And now we are going to read the fields. Same thing, we're going to say this is file reader dot read fields. Okay, now we have done that. What we need to do is we need to now loop through our indices list, because that's the one we need to pick up the indices from. For each needed index in indices, just do a 4. Now we got the indexes. How are we going to add the entire array into the data table? This is where we're going to do something fancy, where we're going to say we are going to create another variable here. We're going to say this guy is again nothing but a new list of object. And then we are going to say from that one, when you are going to read it, add that into the list, because when we are going to send this, I want to send everything from that line as a row to the data table. So this is where I can use that, and all I have to now do is dt.rows.add. All I have to say is table fields dot to array. That will now add the entire field that we need by looping through the column. So in this one, it will read. So if you look at the file, the way this is going to work is it did already read this one. It is now going to read the second line. The second line, it finds that this is a line that I need, so that goes into field. So this line that I highlighted is the one which go into the field. Then from there, we are going to say, I now need to loop through the indexes that I need. So it will say, okay, you need 1, you need 3, because that's cons. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So it says, okay, now I need cons. So when it finds that, Pennsylvania goes into table fields, USD goes into table fields, so on and so forth. So scenario goes in there. And then once we are done there, this at the end, once it comes out of the loop, what it does is it then adds the Pennsylvania, and then it's kind of an array. I don't know. It's like you can then do it like this way, and then say I need that. So actual, that all goes like an array into the row. That's what that entire code does. So now we have our table filled, we have our data table filled. Or what we have to do is come out of the while loop. It is already done. All we now need to do is save that table. brapi.database.SaveCustomDataTable. All we are now going to do is give the session. We are going to say this is an external table. So I'm going to say this is external tables. Our table name is nothing but sample underscore profit. I'm going to say use bulk insert. I'm going to say the bulk insert is true. Now I need to wipe the entire table before saving that file. So I can then say you can do whatever you want. So I'm going to say db. You can clear based on maybe the last updated time, last updated user, maybe by a scenario, whichever you need, you can do it that way. So we are going to say this is db connection as db coninfo equals brapi dot database dot create external db info session. The external connection that I added is external table, and then we're gonna say close that, and in here I can run a command which says database dot execute an action query. Gonna say ddextcon. My SQL statement is going to be delete from sample underscore profit. You could write where clause in here. You could say delete from sample profit where something equals something. You can do that. I'm not gonna do it there right now. I'm gonna just say I don't want anything. I can say large command timeout. That is true. I could say log the errors, and that's it. So that's how you can do the custom command where you could 83. Now what did I do? Oh, didn't give the table name. Okay, so good, everything is right. This is how you can do pick and choose columns and then say I want to load only these columns from the table. So now let's look at our table. So if we do select top 100, we have all the info in there, and you can see that the time is from the last time I recorded it. So it is updated time is that. We have all these info. Now the geography came as sample, that's a cube name. And let's now go ahead and run our data management job. So I'm gonna say run that. So it is now going to extract the data. It is going to now run our custom business rule. Everything is completed. Now if you go back and run this, you will see that geography is Pennsylvania. Correct. Oh, I flipped it. That's why. So as you can see, even though we had everything going in correctly, our columns did change, because what I did was I still didn't do it in the way it is appearing in the field. So even though the table read it, what happens is the save custom data table it is not having a mapping. So what it does is it just picks up the data table and then just saves it directly in there. There is no mapping process in that. So either you could do it in the same order that the file is coming. So in this case, I just have to say it is going to be currency, then scenario. So you could do it that way. Or if you want to really just go and have a different order, you will have to you cannot use the default save custom table, and we will see that. So all we have to now do is I'm going to directly execute it from here so that you can see that the order in which you are mentioning that does matter. So if I change it and then say cons is coming first, it is going to save it correctly. So this is where it says currency, scenario, time, account. Now, just for giggles, let's say that we are going to keep it the old way. So I'm going to say scenario is there. Let's also do something more. We're just going to say, okay, this is where it goes. So if we go this way, the whole thing is going to go crazy because now everything is going to be everywhere. So we're not going to run that. We're going to use something called SQLBulkCopy. So for that, you will have to import a new namespace, which is nothing but a SQL client. So you could just say import data.SQLClient, and then again, this is not needed. If you just change the order and then make it the order that it appears in the file, it's going to work fine, since we're just going fancy. So we're going to say we're going to use SQLBulkCopy as SQLBulkCopy as new SQLBulkCopy, and then we need to provide the connection string. So I have to move this using to the end because we need the string from our external connection. So I am going to say db external connection dot connection string. Again, that is something hidden. So you can just directly type that in there, which says db connection string. We have that. And all we are now going to do is we are going to say we need a mapping for each data column. Data column, because we are going to say from the data table, this is a mapping that we need. Column n dt dot columns. Now we are going to create a SQL mapping. So all we then do is obj SQLBulkCopy dot SQLColumnMappings dot add. All we are going to do is we're just going to say the dc dot column name comma dc column name. Kind of silly, isn't it? We're just going to say this column goes to this column. That's needed just because even though our column names are different, if you have a different column name, you can add it there. So I could just say this one is nothing but the source column is that, the destination column, if everything is written as upper, and then you need to make it as upper, you can do it this way. So if there are different names, you could do it here and then say the data table column is this. However, the real table column is something else. So you can do that. That's what this is used. Now, once that mapping is done, all we are now going to do is write that to the server. Write to server. Just going to say dt, because if you expand this, you will see there's a data table. That's it. That's it. So if we run this, we will Oh, didn't say the destination properties. Bulk.destination table name. Forgot to do that. Sample underscore profit. So now it is good. There we go. Let's see now what happens. Ta-da! So that concludes our whole series of loading the file. So if you just want to load the entire file into a custom table, you can just use the default option and then just add the field token saying this is what the field type is, this is what the column name is. That will do it. Now, if you don't want any columns, then you can remove the last columns and then add default ones. We saw that one in the second episode. If you delete everything from the last and then just put default, you could get that one there by using the second episode. Now, if you don't want columns in between and you want just a mix and match of everything, you just want a default value, you just want some columns to go, you don't want to keep the file order, all those things were covered in this episode. So all these are custom ones. You are totally not need to do it. If you don't want it, again, this is a real world scenario where if you extract data from OneStream and you want it to be sent to a data source where people are going to use it, that's when you need it. Otherwise, you don't need this. So I hope you enjoy. That concludes our whole series.